Hello, everyone, and welcome to the League One Lowdown podcast here on the Deck Network. Myself, Jamie Johnson, here to bring an exclusive interview with former Lincoln City chairman Rob Bradley. He was the chairman between 2000 and 2005 when financial concerns and administration issues were hanging over the club. He saw them out of that period, part of the team that helped the club really cement themselves up to where they are now, 2025, and they're just finished 11th in League One after challenging almost to get into the playoffs last season. Rob is now the Reading Community Trust chairman, still involved very deeply with the football club, and he's written a new book. Imposter is what it's called. The people on YouTube will be able to see me holding up a copy here. Rob discusses in the book, as well as that campaign I mentioned, almost getting into the playoffs. He also discusses, and this is what we're going to talk about in this interview, the case for fan ownerships, his experience, half a decade on the board at Lincoln City, and why that is a case and why that is an example of fan ownership working and how it can work successfully. Rob was awarded the Freedom of the City of Lincoln in 2024. He's been around Lincoln United, who he mentions in this podcast, non-league club, who have just been promoted into step 4 of the football pyramid. He's been in and around Lincoln and Lincolnshire sport for a long while now, and his new book shines a light on fan ownership and what he believes is the need for it. And without any further ado, the other side of this short intro package will be myself talking to Rob Bradley. So, Rob, thank you for joining me here in the University of Lincoln for this morning. It's
pleasure,
a lovely day for it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Yeah, good to see you again.
Yeah, that's it. And obviously, we're going to talk about your book, and we'll get onto that in terms of the why you've written it and that sort of thing. And then I feel that the real sort of theme of the book is about fan ownership, isn't it? As well as all the asides in terms of the club and with Lincoln City in particular. You talk a lot about your experience being a fan involved in the owning and chairmanship of a football club. How do you sort of reflect on that, I guess, as an overall question to begin, in terms of what it's like, your experience being part of that?
Yeah. Well, you've hit the nail on the head, really, because right through the book, it's about fans involved in their football clubs. And since the sort of Bury demise, which was very, very sad, and we saw the impact on fans there, and then the Premier League clubs looking at a Super League, this is a while ago, but it's still bubbling under. The Football Governance Bill is emerging through its tortuous process through the House of Lords and the House of Commons. But it's there to address certain issues that involve football fans, which is losing touch with your club, not being sort of respected by some clubs. We still see difficulties happening. And I've always thought, and obviously now, the people who make the laws think fans should have some say in how their football club is run. And have some involvement, as well as obviously be the people that are there all the time. They're the ones that are there all the time when owners come and go, managers come and go, that type of thing. So I think that's a really important thing. I had involvement with Supporters Direct, which was started supporters trusts, and very much about how important fans are to the game. So there's bits in it about that. And then obviously local experiences as a fan involved in a football club.
I guess to flesh that out a bit, why do you think it is so important fans get involved in ownership?
Well, they are the ones who are left behind, basically. They are the moral owners. All these cliches have been said, but they've never been more true than they are now, really. When you look at Reading, fortunately saved again, but Southend have had a terrible time. Morecambe struggling. We know the experiences of Bury and others, Macclesfield. So it's the fans who basically suffer when a football club goes under or is run badly. So I think it's very, very important that the fan at least has a voice. A fan representative, fan organisation has a voice in how their football club is run. Because and when you look at the Premier League, when they're changing kick-off times, the cost, and all the rest of it, and no cup replays, this sort of stuff, fans are getting left behind. But fans are loyal. They only support one club. You don't shift to another one because you're not happy. So you're inherently attached to your club. And I just think it's important that football clubs constantly recognise that and do something about it.
I guess, I mean, not to go on too much of a tangent, but I feel like you see a lot of people sort of moving a bit more to sort of non-league and lower level of football because there is that more connection, isn't there? And you mentioned the Super League a little bit earlier on. There is that sort of disconnect really with sort of the big money at the top of the football pyramid, and it seems like that connection is what people are after.
It is. I mean, that sums it up perfectly. I mean, you've got Lincoln United, have a great season last season, got promoted. They were
Lincoln United promoted into Step 4.
Absolutely, yeah. They've got promoted back to the Northern Premier League and their gates have gone up. That's not to say that Lincoln City have struggled because they've had over 9,000 average gate, which is fantastic. You know, the Lincoln City, that's what the book's all about, really, because Lincoln City are an example of how to involve your supporters. But you're quite right. Non-league football, the cost, the Muckle Nettles football that's played, it's a bit of a throwback, some of the football, but you can talk to the players afterwards and that sort of stuff. So we're really lucky in Lincoln. We are at the moment with the way Lincoln City is run and the support it's got. And then Lincoln United you can go and watch them when Lincoln are away because it's a great afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Lincoln City, as you mentioned there, is an example of this fan ownership sort of structure being in place. I guess the main example in sort of the EFL at the minute is Exeter City, isn't it? They're fan owned, and I guess do you agree that they've sort of shown that it's possible in terms of being able to push forward while being a fan owned club? It
is. I don't know how Exeter do it, quite honestly, because with the costs in League One, they are a shining example of how the fans can own a football club, and obviously there's a Wimbledon experience as well and that sort of thing. But Lincoln's right from from 1999, 2000, when the trust was set up and acquired the last chairman's shares, it's always been a hybrid of supporters trust and then private owners, private investors, directors in the normal sense. And that's worked because it's 25 years in the making. You know what I mean? It's existed for 25 years and the club still has 2 trust representatives on the board. So I think the finances involved, the higher you go up, so Championship, League One, that type of stuff, it's harder to be completely fan owned. But that's not to say it's not possible, as a couple of examples. Further down you go, then it is possible with fans getting involved, putting their own fundraising methods into place, that sort of stuff. But I think our hybrid thing works, and you've got investors who want fans to be involved in the club, which you've got to have that as a really important element.
And I promise we'll get onto your experience in particular, but is that something you think should be more commonplace? You mentioned sort of the success of the Lincoln hybrid model. Is that something you think more clubs should do?
I think so, because it's right in a sort of social sense. You're listening to fans. You can put sort of business practices in place because you know exactly what the fans need, what they want, that type of thing. But it's not a bad, we found it's quite a good commercial approach because people will sponsor and invest in a football club if they know it's not going to a single person who's running it. They may trust a single person who's running it, who's doing a good job, or a small group of people, sort of closed shop. But if they know the fans are looking at the accounts and are dealing on a day-to-day basis, they think my investment is going to be well spent, even if it's just the sponsorship of a game, that type of thing. So, and we did actually prove years ago, it makes commercial sense to involve supporters. It's always like supporters are thick and they don't know what they're doing. It's nothing like that at all. There's massive skills in the supporters base, so why not involve them in a football club?
And in terms of yourself then, being the chairman in the 2000s, what was that like for you, being that fan really sort of behind the scenes? Obviously that's what you talk about in your book in terms of the trials and tribulations of being so closely entwined with the workings of it.
Well, it was amazing, and I was really keen that our trust could show that a club could be run by fans, but obviously we had business people involved as well, with this being the hybrid model. But it was really difficult because the comparison, and this is what sort of the book tries to show, the comparison of Lincoln City 20 odd years ago and what it is now is stark, to say the least. And we were like firefighting, we were like doing what we can to clear debt, to raise money, for the manager to be supported. We had players on 200 or 300 quid a week, and that was unbelievable when we came out of administration. So it was really what should we say, the economics of desperation, I think, a lot of it. But everybody, what that did was it got everybody to pull together. And now you look at the comparison how it is now, so professionally run, all the right people in all the right jobs, brilliant leadership by Clive with the tone he sets for the club and his board. So it's a comparison of the two. And like it worked all those years ago because we got out of trouble and we put things in place to be a bit more sustainable. But then it's gone up 20 levels to what it is now when you look at the size of the club and how it does stuff. So the book, as a fan elected director, I experienced both. So it was quite interesting to reflect on that now years later and write a bit about it. But yeah, it was an honour to be the chairman from the fans, but it was also incredibly difficult, really difficult period. But a lot of people helped us pull through. They deserve the credit, how we got through all those difficult times.
You mentioned Clive. I guess for non-Lincoln City fans listening, it's Clive Nates, the chairman now of the club. So can you sort of paint a bit broader picture of what it was like when you came in? You mentioned sort of the troubles in terms of the financial concerns when you were coming in. How bad really was it when you sort of took?
It was really bad. I got interviewed once on, I can't remember, local television, and the guy said, well, all these clubs go through this. You're just saying this to get people to support you. All clubs survive. And it was like, this was live on television. And I'm thinking, no, it's not like that at all. And I was like trying to be honourable about it. So I said, well, it's not quite as comfortable as you think, because that was like, I didn't expect those sort of questions, because at the time we were really struggling. We had a weekend in the boardroom before going into the High Court. And the administrator, the insolvency practitioner that we got involved at the time, had written to us all individually as directors, your club cannot survive. I cannot support you in the High Court. So we were going to go to the court without the support of the person we thought was going to get us, with a little bit of a light at the end of a tunnel. So it was really bad. Because it was so bad, people rallied round even more, and we sort of survived the first court case, and then the second one, like 4 days later, the judge could see we'd got a plan, and the plan started to come together.
And I guess it's a shining example, isn't it, of what you talked about in terms of how fan owners can make that difference and be able to sort of bring a club out of dark times, and where it is now, it's completely different than the club.
Yeah. Well, you've got sort of fan ownership, local people ownership. Now you've got foreign investors. But they've used the same philosophy, which is involve everybody, which a lot of privately owned, if you know what I mean, football clubs, they don't do that. They think we want to run this how we want to run it. The fans, they're having a good time because we're putting our money in this type of, but no, even with the investment that's being made by Clive Nates, the South African cohort, and now there's American investors, they want the fans to be part of that journey. I hate that expression, but they want part of what's going on. And the fans respect them for that. They've done so much for the club, but they've involved the fans along the way, which is why there's such good vibes at Lincoln City at the moment.
And I guess maybe not devil's advocate, but the other side of it in terms of, you mentioned Exeter City earlier in terms of being probably the highest ranked in terms of the clubs that are fan owned and have that involvement. Is it possible to go beyond that and push up to the top, do you think, the way football is at the minute?
I would think it would be very, very difficult because, players' wages, players' salaries, the cost. We've got clubs that of every £100 they earn, £125 goes on players' wages, and there's everything else to pay for. We've all seen the accounts that come out of football clubs. So generally, you need people bunging in money on a regular basis. If that is a successful business model, I'm not so sure, but that seems to be the business model of pretty much the majority of football clubs, shall we say, especially from the Premier League down. But if the industry got its act together a bit more and it wasn't so stretched in the way I've just described, then I don't see why fan-owned football clubs couldn't survive and go further up. The redistribution of wealth in the football pyramid, if you like, is not what it should be. And we're from Lincoln, we're bound to say that, because the Premier League, they feel it's their money and they dribble a bit down, and they have no particular priority about the game, as the good of the game as a whole. And to be honest, if you're a director of a company, your first duty is to look after your company. So in some ways you can see that. But when suddenly a large club goes under, which is not out of the question, that's when maybe people will have a bit of a revisit on it all and see how the finance works, because it is all a bit crazy, to be quite honest.
Is that what's needed, you think, in terms of the overall picture, that there is just a big reset and a big restructure in terms of how money is handled in football?
Well, I do think that a byproduct of it all is 3 clubs got promoted from the Championship. Those 3 clubs got relegated because the step up is so great. Now, if you want an unhealthy pyramid, that's what you're going to get. You see it now, League 2 clubs going into League 1. It used to be, if you've won League 1 or got promoted, you'd usually do pretty well you'd won League 2, you'd usually do pretty well in League 1 because there isn't the gap. But it's all stretching now because of the finance at the top, the Championship, the costs to get into the promised land. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's healthy. There's always the opportunity to put a team together cheaper than others. And I think maybe sometimes too much is made of budgets here and budgets there, because good management can put a good team together without it necessarily being 11 vastly paid stars, and we see that when clubs come up and are well run, like Brighton, Brentford and that sort of stuff. But it's generally the money is having such an influence on the competitive nature of the game, which is a shame. Which is a shame.
Just to bring it back to you, but the other side of it is, of course, just about Lincoln City and about their season before last now, wasn't it, where they got so close to the playoffs with Joe Taylor sort of inspiring that run at the end of the season. So, I mean, I guess you're a little bit removed from that now, but Lincoln are in a really good spot at the minute still, aren't they? They finished 11th in the season, just gone, and they're an example of what you mentioned in terms of a well-run club, not spending above their means and pushing above their weight still.
Yeah. Well, I wrote about that season because that was the last season I was on the board, and the second half of that season was pretty amazing. It was really good. We were 1 win from getting in the playoffs, chance of the Championship again, because we was at the Wembley final 2 or 3 years earlier. So, but that sort of frames the general picture of what it's like at Lincoln City in the past, what it's like now, and Lincoln City have done pretty well. I mean, to finish top half again is really good. Again, talking about, I'm saying we mustn't talk about budgets, so then I bring budgets up again. But with the budget they've got and the sort of side, the money that was being spent, that was really good. But I do think also it's the skills, getting a really good team together that gels, not necessarily the 11 individuals, which is what's the ones who've spent a lot of money. Sometimes it hasn't worked. Huddersfield, people like that. It's not really worked. They signed one of our players. They signed Joe Taylor. It's not really happened, and then they've got to start again. You know what I mean? With all and react to the money they've already invested.
And I mean, I feel like it is a bit of an argument around sort of Lincoln fan base about sort of how much you can talk about the budget and how much that actually impacts. But it is there, isn't it? It's sort of a lingering sort of thing around. I think they're 17th, 18th, 19th, sort of in terms of the League One list of how rich the teams are, if you like. Yeah. And to be consistently pushing up into the top half,
17th.
It's showing that the model works in a way that they are managing to perform better than their money suggests they should.
Yeah. And the thing is, we do have a young squad because we want to develop players. We'll probably see in the next few weeks some departures and some investment for what we've put into those lads coming back into the football club, transfer fees and this compensation, whatever. So that's why we don't buy a squad of mature players. We have one of the youngest squads, and that works as well. That's another element. But yeah, I do know there's a certain number of fans who get a bit fed up hearing this budget, that budget, and the club occasionally mention it when they have a fans forum. It's not an excuse; it's just the reality of it. But yeah, there's one or two. There's the social media side of things can get a bit difficult, and some people think we should be doing better, even though the budget's quite low, and they get fed up of hearing budget this and budget that. But most fans think top half, a cup run, and when I was chairman, I always used to say there's no reason we can't be in the playoffs, because that's not a lie. There is no reason we couldn't be in the playoffs, and we did actually get in the playoffs 3, 4, 5 times. So I think that's the club philosophy, and get a run together, 3 points for a win. Who knows next season? We can't be top 10 approaching that playoff position.
This is always one team that sort of books the trend. I guess it's been Leyton Orient this year, who are at time of recording with ahead of the playoff final, but they've got themselves into that with a chance of promotion. And perhaps it was Lincoln last year who were the outsiders that just didn't quite get into the playoffs. But there is always that opportunity for someone to go above and beyond and sort of book the trend and be the outlier.
Well, it's form. It's like putting a run together. And sometimes even with the most modest squad, I think Orient were quite low down in the league. Charlton were quite low down in the league, but then got up into the playoffs. If you've got a manager that can get the blend right and get a run going and, get points away and have a good sort of fortress home record, then there's absolutely no reason, I'm saying it again, Lincoln can't be up there challenging, you know what I mean? So that we all hope that's what happens.
And I guess the other thing to talk about is what you're doing now in terms of the Red Imps Community Trust, and that other side of things have been the supporters, the trust, as opposed to the board. What is that sort of? Is it different? Is there any similarities between the two roles?
No, the trust has existed since 2000. It's a fans organisation. We have a shareholding. We have representation in the boardroom. But we got back involved, a few of us, a few years ago, and we thought, well, the club's really progressing. We need the trust to progress, because it was doing fine, it was ticking over, but you can never stop. You know what I mean? You've got to always challenge yourself. So we've upped the membership, 6,000 members. We put on stuff. We listen to what people say, take it in the boardroom. We put on events. We're busy in the fan village. We love that. And then Lincoln City have just won the Family Excellence Gold Award again. And I think the trust play a little part in the fan village for youngsters to come along, get free stuff, competitions. We add to the fan village a little bit. So we've tried to run the trust as well as the club is run by saying, let's challenge, let's set targets, let's be ambitious. And we've got some great people involved. So it takes, that's not work, that's just enjoyment, to be honest. So, roll on next season. But there's plenty to do now. We've got things planned in the summer. So it's just a fans organisation, but we're trying to be a good one.
And Sam, one of our co-hosts, Leyton Orient fan, who came to Lincoln and had nothing but nice words about the fan village in particular. And I guess that is, again, a little bit that sort of ties into the whole thing about that connection and there being that fans saying, we want something like this, and that being sort of provided. There's that conversation always happening.
Yeah. Well, Lincoln are fortunate to have the space around the ground. It used to be a car park. Now people park away or, other ways to get to the ground. Parking at the ground is not encouraged. That gave us the space. And in fairness to other clubs, some of them are hemmed in. They don't have that space. I think Grimsby have a little fan village that's quite small, but they're trying. You can't create space when there's houses all around your ground, that type of thing. But others are following it because it's just enjoyment. You know what I mean? There's people turn up at Lincoln City now, 11:30, 12 o'clock, because they're in the fan village, get a beer, get a burger, chat. There's lots of talk going on. Then we laid on a guitarist singer for one of the games just before the end of the season. And there's entertainment. It's good commercially for the club, but it's good for everybody you're not turning up at 2:50, going in the game and leaving again. It just makes really good afternoon. Good for youngsters as well.
And I guess final point then to sort of, bring it full circle in terms of back onto the fan ownership. If you could make sort of one argument and why you think it should be more commonplace, what would that be?
It would be because I go back to the moral owners thing. You may be a millionaire, billionaire, and you may be a big fan of the club, or you may just want to help that football club over a period. That's absolutely fine. But when you arrive, there's thousands of fans that exist there already. And when you leave, there'll be the same thousands of fans forever carrying on supporting that football club. So you have a responsibility, if you run that club, to always listen and take on board what they think. Treat them with respect and let them have a say in how your club is run, who you own at that particular moment. Now, I think Clive Nates and the board, when they go, they'll still be Lincoln City fans. That maybe says quite a lot, to be honest, about how they run it now. But You've just got to listen to the fans because it's better for your team, your manager, and the business side of a club. So always involve your fans.